Hi, I'm Pam Hayes from Hayes Sewing Machine Company in Wilmington, Delaware, and today we're going to talk about the Baby Lock Zest. It's a nice basic model. I'm going to show you how to thread it and do some of the basic stitches and show you some of the feet that come with it as well. Alright, so here is the Zest. On and off switch is going to be on the side. And when you get it out of the box, it's going to have these spool pins down. So remember, you're just going to take it and pull that puppy up. Now, when you are lowering your presser foot, it's a lever that's on the black lever that's on the side. If you're a beginner sewer, it's really important to make sure the foot is down on the fabric when you're starting to sew. All right. We're going to go and we're going to grab a spool of thread, and I'm going to show you how to rewind a bobbin. And we're going to go and we're going to use either spool pin and wrap around, and we're going to go through the hole. So you see how I went from the inside of the bobbin up to the outside. I place it on top. See how my thread is coming up. I move this over, and then I'm going to pull the wheel out. If you forget to pull the wheel out, what's going to happen, the needle's going to go up and down. It's not a crisis in any way, but you'll notice that whenever I pull the wheel out, and I just hold the thread, and it will pull off. But if you pan down, you take a look, see how the needle is not going up and down? That's because we pulled the wheel out.
And how did you get it to turn?
Just put your foot on the pedal. Now, you're going to see that the bobbin stops spinning, but you have to take your foot off the foot control. Alright, so you're going to go and you're going to push it back and pull it up, and then make sure you pull the wheel back in, or push the wheel back in. To take the bobbin case out, you have to remove your arm cover. This piece opens up, and there's a latch. So you open the latch and pull. When we go, drop it in, and you'll see when I'm pulling the thread, it's going to the right or clockwise. You'll notice there is a slit on the side near the screw, but you'll see there's a slit. The thread goes through the slit, and then just keep pulling until it's underneath the spring in that U-shape piece. You then take, you can hold the latch if you want, at least to get it on. You'll notice there is a niche where the arm of the bobbin case is going to go, and you just make sure it's pushed in all the way. Perfect. Now, threading the top of the machine into the clip,
When you're threading it, what are the things that you need to make sure you're doing?
Make sure needle's up, and to do that, make sure your take-up lever is up at the top, and make sure your presser foot is in the up position. When you go, you are no longer going around the circular piece. You're going to go into the clip, and you'll see that that's labeled 1. And we're going to go down. 2 is down the front. We're coming back up to 3. And then you're going to go behind either guide. So whether you go behind here or the one on the left, either is absolutely fine. And you're going to make sure you have a nice sharp bit to your thread. I have lowered the foot. And sorry, I'm going to have to change the angle a little bit. Nope. Can you tell I use machines that have a needle threader? There you go. So we're going to go from front of the needle to the back. By the way, when you are changing needles, the black screw is what you're going to loosen. So loose it by turning it towards you, okay? And then the needle will have a flat side to the top, and that goes to the back. Now, to get the bottom thread up, I'm going to turn that wheel on the end towards me. One complete revolution until the take-up lever is back up to the top. And then there's a loop of thread. So let me do that one more time for you. All right, top thread, and again, take-up lever up at the top, turn the wheel towards you until the take-up lever is back up at the top again, and when I pull the thread, look at the loop. And there you go. It's just that simple. Close the door, and then if you want, put the little table back on. It'll give you a bigger work surface. Now, you have 4 different presser feet that come with your machine. Your traditional foot, which is going to be on the machine, which is going to be doing your zigzag, your straight stitch, and pretty much all the other stitches that you have on your machine. You could use that one. Now, you have specialized presser feet. Buttonhole. So when you're doing the 4-step buttonhole, you want to make sure you change the foot, and I'll show you how to do that. This is your blind hem foot, and then this is your zipper foot. Now, when we are going to go and we are starting to sew, I have 2 fabrics in. I lower the foot. Take a look on your machine. Your normal stitch is A. So I look here, see where it says selector? You're going to make sure it's on A. And 2.5 is the normal. Put your foot on the pedal. And there you go. Now, your machine will stop where, the needle will stop wherever it will when you take your foot off the foot control. If I need to turn a corner, I turn the wheel so the needle is down, lift up the foot, and then I can position it how I wish. So that's your normal length of stitch. If I want to make it longer, so if I want to have a temporary seam, 4. I'll make it longer. So you can see how it's a longer stitch. And if you go towards 0, don't take too many stitches because see how it stitches in place. So you never really want to go all the way to 0 unless you want to stitch in place. So again, normal is at 2.5. If I'm doing a traditional seam, I need to back stitch. I need to reverse. This is your reverse. You hold it entirely down so that the little indent for your finger is down at the bottom. So not like that, but all the way down. And now it's going to sew backwards. You release it, and it's going to sew forward again. So if I'm sewing at the end of the seam, see how I'm coming to the end? So pretty much right at the edge, I'd hold it down, go back a couple of stitches, 4 or 5, release. Okay, now to take the fabric out of the machine, I want to make sure my take-up lever is up at the top. Raise the foot, and you have a cutter on the post. You'll see where there's a slit, just pull towards you. And all right, there you go.
What if your needle's not in the highest position? How do you do that?
If your needle is not in the high position, so say it's down, okay? Turn the wheel on the end. Always turn it towards you until your needle's up.
And then that pops up.
Yep. So you want to make sure, I rarely look at the needle. I actually look more at this piece, which is called the take-up lever. Because if the take-up lever is down, it can still be down when the needle's up. Alright? So whenever you take your fabric out, you want the take-up lever up at the top. If you don't, some of the different causes, when you pull your fabric out, you'll get a strange third loop of thread. And it's because you're stopping at mid-stitch. Or, if when I go to start my next seam, if my take-up lever is not up at the top, it has to pull thread. And it can pull the thread out of the eye of the needle. So if you don't like threading, it's not going to be a great thing. Alright, if I go to my next stitch, so if I'm doing C, anywhere from off of B, so you see how it gets tiny and then it gets bigger as it goes across. All of those are technically your zigzag. So if I wanted a tiny zigzag, I'll stop it and show you what it looks like. So see how that's a much smaller zigzag, and I'm close to the B. At this point, if I go all the way to C, it's going to make it the width of, so see how much bigger it is? So all you had to do is change your positioning on your selector. Again, if you're at B, you're still on a straight stitch, but as you start to go off of B, small zigzag, bigger as you go all the way to C. Now, if you wanted to shorten your length of stitch to the buttonhole area between 1 and 0, this is a kind of a nice stitch. In craft patterns, they call that a satin stitch. So it's good for doing applique or something decorative. If I wanted to work with mending a tear, the next stitch across, D, is going to do a lovely job. So I'm going to turn my selector to D, still have it at a short length of stitch, and you'll notice it looks like a zigzag, but not quite. It is broken, so it's called a multi-zigzag. So say I have a slit or a tear in my fabric. I'm going to line the tear in the center of the foot. And what's the center of the foot? Can you see the slit? So we know that's the center. We line this up. Alright, so we take a look, and there is my slit. Nicely stitched together, and I'm good to go. Now, if I have a seat of a pair of pants, I'm putting a handle on a tote bag, I'm going to switch back to A for a moment. But I'm going to focus on the bottom, or the green area. So you have to turn the dial until it's at the green. SS stands for stretch stitch, so that's going to be the bottom row. You're going to notice when it sews, it wiggles backwards and forwards. So it's going to be a much heavier stitch. So it's really where you want it to be. Seat of a pair of pants, something you know already fits. You don't want to just go in and do this when you might have to take it back out.
So this was the regular straight stitch that you did?
You got it. So you see how it looks thinner? It's a single stitch as opposed to the triple.
Where it looks heavier and thicker.
Yep. Alrighty. Now, the next one over, we're going to focus on E and F. Both of those are blind hems. So if I'm doing a knit material, that is the blind hem of E. If I'm doing a woven, it's the F. So I'm going to focus on F, and my length of stitch, I'll start normal, around 2.5. Now, we need to change the foot, or we'll have a better result if we do. To change the foot, you'll see there's a little metal piece that's sticking out. Push towards you, and the bottom of the foot drops off. Now, if you look from the side, there's a little tunnel in the front. And then you're going to notice that every foot has a metal bar or a little pin. You want to line the two together, and then I just lower the foot.
You're lowering the presser foot onto
Yep.
that sole.
I'm lowering it down. So do that again for you. Line it up, and then I lower the foot and it snaps in. I see some people try to push it up, and you can do that, but I think this way is a little easier. When you're doing your blind hem, there is a certain way you have to fold it, and in your book they'll go into in depth on that. I would zigzag this edge. If I was doing this on a real garment, I would zigzag the edge, but I'm going to flip it up and then tuck it backwards. You'll notice I have an extended piece about 1/4 inch, and you'll notice because I changed the foot, the guide is going to go right along the edge. The blind hem, if you look how it's diagrammed, you'll see how it has a straight bit and then it zigs over to the left. The straight piece is going to go on the extended section, and when it zigs over, we want it just to catch the fold. So we're going to see how this is going to do it. Again, I'm just turning the wheel.
So you hand turn it first to
Yeah.
make sure it catches?
Or you can just start to sew. It won't hurt either way. All right, that looks pretty good. And I'll take a look in the back. Yep, it's catching nicely.
So do you pull on that fabric to kind of
I
check
do.
to see if it catches?
Yep, see how I'm kind of pulling it over. Now, my goal is to keep the fold along the guide. Now, if I was doing an actual hem, remember you'd have pins in here as well. So you want to make sure you take the pins out as you come.
So you do not want to sew over pins.
No, it's not recommended. All right, remember I'm taking my fabric out, so my take-up lever is up at the top, and I'm just going to cut. That's what you're looking for. See how it's just catching the fold ever so slightly, and you see your straight stitch on the extended piece. Then when you open it up,
Oh, nice. Can't even
Yep.
see it.
you see just a little bit.
So what happens if it doesn't catch? How
If
do you
it
adjust that?
doesn't catch, okay, so if you find that it's, here you go. Let me do the other side. So what would happen is if you are not catching, you would move the guide. See how I'm turning the silver wheel, and I'm moving the guide to the right, so I'm getting the fold closer to the guide. If the other extreme, I'm catching way too much, you would then move the guide the other direction and it pushes the fabric away. Alrighty, and just gonna, as an added little bonus, something else that you can do with this foot, which is awesome. say you need to top stitch. If you're top stitching close to the fold, think about it. Does that make sense? If you're trying to do it with a regular foot, you're going to be all over the place, right? Because there's nothing to stop it from moving. We're going to go to stitch B because B is in left needle position. And I line the edge of whatever I'm top stitching along the fold. And my focus is right there. And look at that. A nice top stitch.
It's perfect.
Alrighty. We're going to take this foot off and we're going to put the zipper foot on. And what I'm going to do with the zipper foot, I'm going to show you how to do piping. So you want to make sure you're on A. And we're going to do a little bit of piping. And if you don't know what piping is, think of the cord that you see around a pillow. So piping cord is kind of on the basic side. We need to wrap it with fabric. And I'm going to line it up so that for this foot, my piping foot is on the right hand side. And you don't want to get too close. So with the needle, you'll notice that the needle's not particularly close to the piping cord. See, there's a little distance away, and that's perfect. That's fine. All right, I take one of my pillows. Imagine this is going to be a pillow. So I have all the edges lined up together, and I'm going to sew basically just right where I've been.
So you're sewing over the same stitch?
Yeah, or close to thereabouts. Alrighty. All right.
That's step 2?
Yep. Step 1 was making it. Step 2 was putting it to one piece of material. I take my second piece. Okay. Now, what I'll recommend to help you, I turn the fabric over so I can see where I've been. If you try to sew from this way, can you see how you're kind of working blind? So if you flip it over, ta-da, it makes life easier. Now this time, I'm going to get that piping or the zipper as close, the zipper foot as close to the piping as I can possibly get. And I'm going to hold it.
So are you pushing it against the piping?
Yep, pushing it against the piping. So can you see how I've sewn much closer this time? And then when I open it up, piping!
Awesome.
Nice and simple. All right. Now, last foot I'm going to show you how to do is the buttonhole foot. Again, you'll see how it has that metal piece. I just snap it on. I like to take the top thread and just pull it underneath. That is not absolutely necessary. We're going to start with step 1. And we need to be on the buttonhole. And you want to mark your fabric. Now, I'm doing it with a ballpoint pen. You would not do it with a ballpoint pen on an actual project. I'm just doing it so you can see it. I mark a capital I. This is where the buttonhole is going to start. That's where the slit is going to be, and that's where the buttonhole is going to end. Traditionally, it is your button, excuse the drawing, plus 1/8 of an inch. If you make it the same size as your button, it won't go through the hole easily. And if you make it bigger, that's the button that always falls out of the buttonhole. So you want to make sure you have it there. Now when I line this up, okay, what you're looking at is the top line wants to be lined up with the 3 red marks. See the middle section where the slit is going to be? See how it's kind of lined up equally on either side. First one, you're going to come down. And you can see I'm stopping it when it gets to the bottom line. Make sure your needle's up. Go to step 2. This is the end of your buttonhole. Do 4 or 5 swipes backwards and forwards. 3. It goes backwards, and it goes backwards automatically. You must stop it when it gets to the top.
So the machine does not know.
The machine does not know. You have to stop it. So you're looking to either see it match your stitching or look to see where those 3 lines again are lining up. Go to step number 4. That does the end. And look at that.
And again, how many stitches on this?
4 or 5 times backwards and forwards. And ta-da! It's a nice, easy buttonhole. If you can count to 4, you're good to go. All right, and the last thing I want to show you how to do is for your stitch G. This is going to be an overlock stitch, so I'm going to turn it to G. Have it at about 1.5 to 2 in the length.
And what presser foot did you put on?
The normal foot that we started with. Okay, I'm going to show you how to put ribbing around 1/4 of a neckline. So when we take...
So you folded the ribbing in half?
Yep. We fold the rib in half. Think of a crew neck. The raw edges together. And I'm going to place it on the curve of the knit. Remember, the right side wants to be showing. And
Are you matching up the whole thing or just that first point?
Just that first point. You'll notice how I don't have anything else matched.
And you don't have any pins in it?
No, you don't really need to. You can quarter it if you want to. Sometimes patterns recommend that. So I'm going to do a couple of stitches just to get it started.
And are you keeping the edge of the foot on the edge of the fabric?
Yep. Try to keep it near the edge. Now, a lot of times we're like, oh, I don't want to sew a curve. Then don't worry about it. We're going to pull this forward. See how I'm pulling the rib straight? And then look at that. I'm just pulling the knit to match.
So you were just kind of tucking it in a flat line as you were
as I was sewing. That's why a lot of times pinning it is not as easy to do. And look at that. It stretches. You don't hear anything you shouldn't. And then there's your neckline.
Voila.
Alrighty. I hope this gives you a little bit of information and have fun with your machine.